This Morgan caller works by using a piece of latex stretched across the end of this, and the way we tune it foolproof is we make a mark on the trailing edge of the rubber 1 1/16 inch apart. I'll put a dot on this side and then come over here exactly 1 1/16 inch and put another little dot. Now I have two dots on there 1 1/16 apart. I put it over the open edge of the canister. Hold it with two fingers like that and line the two black dots up, the two ink dots up on the edge of the collar like that, and take my thumb and make it crescent shaped. It's important that it's crescent shaped. I see a lot of these tube colors, they're straight across, but air escapes on the side if it's not crescent shaped. After you have it in place like that with the two dots lined up in a crescent shape, you take a rubber band and place it in one of those grooves like that, and you have it. For all intents and purposes, it is perfectly tuned. It may need a minor adjustment or two with your fingers like that to get those dots in exactly the right place. If it's too tight, it'll make some squeaking noises. If it's too loose, you have to really know what you're doing to make it work. Now to gobble with this instrument, I put my finger in there until it touches that rubber membrane, and then I'll pull my finger back so it's not quite touching. Then I put it up to my lips and I say, "Cut y'all," and I'll wiggle my finger inside this tube as I do that. And out comes a gobble. To yelp, I just say, "Cook, cook, cook, cook." And the cluck just goes tuk. To cackle, I go tuk, 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 tuk. Followed, of course, by a yelp. The most important thing about using a tube collar, other than having this crescent-shaped hole right there, is to let your jaws and your mouth be relaxed and kind of huff from down in your throat. If you tighten your jaws, it's very hard to control the rubber. That's about all there is to using a tube collar. It takes some practice, but I tell you, it's well worth the while. We don't think there's anything that gobbles quite like this. Our next collar we're going to show you how to use will be this scratch box, the one we call the begging hen. It's very important to hold this block so that this hollowed out piece is at the top and your thumb is on it. If you're a left-hander, you will hold it like that. If you're a right-hander, you will hold it like that so that the collar is in your right hand if you're a right-hander. And it's very important that this thing be flush against that block. No, not like this, not like that, but flush against the block. The index finger should be on the top, and your thumb should be as close to your index finger as possible. And then you just make downward motions like that. I'm left-handed, so I'll do it with my left hand. You see, if you hold it flush on there and you just make a downward motion, it's going to make a high sound up here and a low sound down there. It's about like driving a standard transmission car. And of course you just make longer strokes. And you'll have that assembly of short strokes will give you a cut or a cluck. Now you notice that I keep this thing in contact with the board at all times. I don't lift it up like that. Like I see a lot of people with scratch boxes doing, you lose your resonance when you do that. To make keys, I just make slow, very light strokes at the top. Just like that. You can also make yelps by making a violin motion around and around like that. A little bit slower cadence yelp simulates a lonesome hen yelp rather than the assembly yelp. Like that. Aging has no effect on it. I'll show you a collar here that I've used for quite some time. We prefer not to put unnatural finishes on our collars. This one I've killed a large number of turkeys with, and as you can see, it makes no difference. The tone just seems to get better as they get older. It's a very effective collar, this begging hen. Now the wingbone type collars, the Spanish dagger yelper is very lightweight, and the way we use it is we put it on the edge of our lips, and you first find a friction point where you can do that by sucking in. Now to make even notes, you pretend that you're drinking through a straw, and if you cup your hands over the end of it, you get a modulating effect with the tone. To key, you just all in one breath. Now, of course, to make your tree up sort of yelps, you just grip it very tightly and make the bell that you make with your hands smaller, so there's less of a resonating chamber. Now the friction wood, as we said, is an awesome collar. This part where you see the logo is a sounding board that vibrates when you strike this side of it over here with a striker. So you really control the tone by how much pressure you put on this board right here. You see, if I hold it right up here close to the top and I make my stroke coming from the edge back to the middle, it'll be a clear yelp with very little rasp. I'm not allowing that board to vibrate very much. But if I hold it like this, there's much more rasp in it. You see that clear area with the chalk right there is football shaped, and that's the shape that I make my strokes. I start it out slow and speed it up as I get into the curve. It's very easy to do. Now to make the purr and the clucks, I hold the striker almost at right angles to the board, and I like to do it on the closed edge of the collar, not the open edge of the collar. I like to close the slit with my hand and make a cup with my hand so that I capture every little bit of sound down there next to my body. A cluck is just one little pluck. Again, I'm keeping this striker in contact with the board. I'm not pulling it up like that. I'm keeping it in contact with the board. You can operate it closed up at the top. That's deadly on turkeys. And it's amazing how far they can hear it. You can use push strokes or pull strokes. If you like the aggravated sort of purrs, you open the end up There's no end to what you can do with this caller. I'll be back in a moment with some more information about these callers. Here's a cover page for an article I wrote for Turkey Call magazine back in 1978. I thought during this session right here I would give you a short idea of what my favorite calls to use with each of the callers. There you see our tube caller. I like to gobble, followed by "I'm coming," yelp from a hen, an acknowledgement sort of thing, if you will, that I hear all the time in the real woods. That's deadly on turkeys. In all parts of the country, turkey hens make a chirping sort of yelp, especially when they're by themselves. I like to call continuously with a low volume to turkeys with our Spanish dagger yelp. Then I pause for about a minute and then crank it up again. It's very effective, especially if you turn your head away from the turkey as you yelp. There are all kinds of sounds you can make with the friction wood. One of the more important ones, especially late in the season when you want to go to quiet calling anyway, is the quaver of the young hen. Also, when you're in thick cover, because a turkey often sees motion, sees what she or he thinks is another turkey, they will emit a single cluck in the deep south. That's an ID cluck. I like to use that single cluck when a turkey is close by in thick cover. That'll make him show himself a good bit of times. The quaver. And in the Midwest, this identification thing sometimes takes on a popcorn effect, like when they think that the other turkey ought to show himself. Now with the begging hen scratch box, there are two radically different calls that I like to make. There are two classes of call. One is the urgent signal, which sounds like this. Generally comes from a demanding boss hen. The other call that I like to use is from the other class of calls. It's not so urgent. Turkeys will catch on to the radical or urgent sounds. I like to use the following sound when a gobbler is hung up. He gobbles and immediately I follow with just about like that, no more. I've had a lot of turn loose from that hung up mode when they hear that. They hear it all winter, and in the spring it works equally well. All these callers will work in certain circumstances. They like fish baits. They work well on some days.